All right. A 5, a 6, a 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3. Ducky Joy.
DJ Ducky Joy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Ducky Joy podcast. My name is Scott McRae.
Brandon Brown.
Askhat.
What's going on today, boys?
Nothing, man. I just had a COVID test.
How did that go?
That shit sucked. So bad.
Really? So it's not like bullshit about everyone? Because everyone I've talked to has been like, oh, it's so bad.
It hurts so bad. Scott. Okay, so I had not done any research into it or anything. I had no idea what they were gonna do to me. I don't know why. They were just gonna rub some shit across my forehead.
Right.
You don't have COVID. No. Nigga, they took a 6-inch cotton swab and shoved that bitch up my nose. That's what the COVID test is. It took maybe 15, 20 seconds. And it's just them going, okay, so I'm going to put this up your nose. And then they put it up your fucking nose. And she tells me, you might feel it in your ear. That's how far into my nose they went with this shit. So they fucking get up there. She's so deep with it that her fingertips are brushing my nose. And it's 6 inches. And she's holding it at the base of it. And so that shit's in me. And I'm forcibly crying because it's so deep in my nose that I can't control my tear ducts. And that shit was awful. It felt like my nose was bleeding. I could taste blood, but there was no blood.
Dear God.
Out or anything. Yeah, it was an experience.
She was swabbing your brain.
She touched my brain. I'm convinced. I feel smart.
Really?
She changed something in there. She tweaked something.
Yeah.
Fixed the thing that
Give
was
me
wrong.
an equation. Give me an equation.
What are you gonna do with the equation?
I'm gonna fucking watch.
Exactly.
Just watch, bro. I'm smart. I am. Okay. But no, that shit was really bad. It was not fun. Everybody wants COVID testing for precautionary measures, but that shit hurt.
Yeah. Did they warn you before? They were like, this is gonna be painful as.
She didn't say it was gonna hurt. She just said I might feel it in my ear. I'd never been told that about something having to do with my nose.
That was code for it. It's so
this is gonna
if
be
you
the
feel
worst.
it in your ear and we're going in through your nose.
You can assume how bad it's gonna feel. Yeah, but for the people at home, I'm getting a tonsillectomy on Friday, and in order to be able to get the surgery, I have to test negative for corona.
So he could have corona and not get his surgery.
Yeah, so I could just be stuck with
He could be
shitty
lit.
tonsils and coronavirus if I had the virus. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, which means we would all end up.
We would have
probably
had
have the virus. Yeah, for sure.
I don't give a shit about you guys. I want my tonsils out. I don't think you understand. Yeah. What's on you guys' mind, though?
Well, had an interesting experience with a small protest yesterday.
Interesting.
This is a personal matter. This goes into the whole versus the individual, I think, in terms of ideas we're going to talk about. But I get back from practice, right? I'm tired of shit.
Right.
I have been working out for 2 hours. I'm tired.
Practicing what for the people at home?
Oh yeah, I'm a fencer. I do fencing. I referee for USA Fencing. And now I coach. I used to coach in New Mexico. Now I am working on getting my coaching license out here in Oregon. If you don't know anything about fencing, or you think you know something about fencing but you really don't, you should go check out some Olympic fencing on YouTube. I recommend Sabre. It's the most fun to watch. Check it out. Get a feel for it. Anyway, so I'm coming back from fencing practice, and the off ramp from the freeway files you down one street, 6th Street if you're in Portland, and it is the only way you can get into downtown. Is 6th Street. You cannot get shuffled off because then you have to go back up on the freeway because they're one-way roads. You cannot go right because Anyway, so Portland State University, the school that we attend, was deciding to protest, disarm
PSU,
disarm PSU officers because there was a shooting a couple of years ago. Personally, I think they're out of their expertise when it comes to protesting this particular matter. But anyway, it was civilians who decided to block off the street, which they have no right to do, for a protest that was maybe like 100 people. And there were some very clearly vocal and energetic type people who were blocking off the road. And so I rolled my window down and I was like, you can't block off the street. Like, I need to get to my parking spot. And along with that, a fire truck was coming down, and the fire truck just looked at them and was like, what are you doing? Get out of the way. Like, you cannot block off the street unless you get the city to approve you blocking off the street. And it wasn't like a big protest that would just shut it down anyway, and you couldn't do anything about it.
Right.
They were actively going out of their way to disrupt people's days. But yeah, so I was just like, yeah, get out of the way. I need to get to my parking spot. And anyway, it just got worse from there. They were like, they tried to engage, and that's when things go downhill. But I mean, good for them for having a cause to fight against. Just get out of my way and don't fuck up my day. You know, don't restrict me from getting to my parking spot. Anyway, that's my little rant for the day. Just where my anger is at the moment.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that, guys?
Okay. So, you know I love you. And you know I'm not personally with the whole disarm PSU movement, just because I feel if someone comes and shoots up the school, then what do we do? Mm-hmm. You know, I feel like that point alone is like, come on now.
No offense to PSU, but got a lot of school shooter types. Like, I'm
like, if that happens, God forbid, like, just what do we do if we disarm the campus police? Anyways, now, the way you voiced your frustrations sound like, you know, those people who drive through protests?
I'm gonna be real honest, that was almost me. I was almost one of those people.
Yeah, that
so
sounded like
now,
their like justification for why they did it. It's like, they ruined my day.
Dude, Fox.
Where I needed to go.
If Fox just got a hold of a clip of a Kazakhstanian man driving through a bunch of protesters, could you imagine that?
Oh yeah,
it's over.
He's from Kazakhstan. No, but like, yeah, the genuine rage within me was like, I could just slowly push through the people. But I didn't do that, obviously.
Of course not.
Obviously. This is why, so here, I use my words, and I did things properly. But I do understand the anger of those people.
But your disconnect was you wanted them to understand your anger. That you were just fresh off practice, you were just doing your daily life, and then they were running there for the collective thing, and then...
And inadvertently, by going about my day, I am supporting the thing that they're against because I'm comfortable in my day-to-day life.
Inadvertently.
Yeah, asshole.
Well, that was a great story, Askhat.
Thank you.
I think is that actually no? We actually have 5 more minutes. Yeah, before we break this up.
What's on your mind, Scott?
Oh man. Honestly, I've been thinking a lot about Lars von Trier's Breaking the Waves. Been thinking a lot about that film, and so yeah, I found out the woman in that movie, Emma Watson, that was her first time actually acting in a major motion picture.
Really?
Was that film, and she was nominated for best. But yeah, I was watching some behind the scenes footage today. Lars von Trier used to be very handsome. But now he's all like fat and Danish, and then you know how this day and age, it's not perfect. But like when he was young, he was a striking man. Like he was quite good looking, and it's like it bumps me out that he's like apparently such a misogynist pig behind the scenes. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn, and you made that movie?
Right. Which
honestly, I guess, yeah, at this point.
How do you know anymore? Yeah.
It's like anyone can make anything.
Yeah, because like I would think about like Frida with Selma Hayek, and like I loved that movie as a kid, and then like finding out years later that she made that movie while the whole time being sexually harassed by Harvey Weinstein. I was like, well, that totally. I'm like that just like doesn't. Yeah. Movies, God.
I want to ask though, does that happen often where an actor or actress in their first major acting gig like gets nominated?
I think if it's something like Breaking the Waves, where it's such a powerhouse like performance, I think honestly, I've never really thought about that, but the context of having someone be like, oh, a first timer, and it's this good, really does something. Like I even thinking about like the whole like Pulp Fiction phenomenon. Like I wonder if how much of that was based around just Tarantino it being his second movie, rather than it being Pulp Fiction, because Pulp Fiction was revolutionary in its own right, but it was all like, this is only his second time making a movie and it's a masterpiece, rather
what about,
than like,
Leonardo DiCaprio, Stephen Woodsey, and Gilbert Grape debut acting.
Yeah, we can get into it.
Yeah, we haven't talked.
We can get into it. Okay, well we're getting into it.
Oh, no.
So
Okay. Okay.
So there's this phenomenon in the world. I mean, in the movie world at large. I would say it's in theater too.
Hey, what are we at time-wise? Just making.
Yeah, no, that is a great question, Askhat. Honestly, yeah. Before we launch into this tirade and this topic, because this is a big thing for us, we're gonna take a break, so we'll be right back, folks. And we are back. Hello, everybody. So we concluded on talking about precocious young actors joining Hollywood.
Remind us what the actor in film that you...
Leonardo DiCaprio, the one and only.
In what film?
And what's eating Gilbert Grape? As Arnie Grape.
That's Arnie Grape.
Now there's something special about this performance. Something very special about this performance.
Well, let's just dive into it. We're talking about mental illness in the film industry, baby. And its portrayal.
And now, film portrayals, we have a lot to complain about in every group across every spectrum.
Right.
However, there seems to be something quite troubling about depicting people with mental handicaps and mental illness that I would say is probably the closest thing we still have to a blackface in modern media that gets a pass, that gets like a hard, oh, no, that's not only a pass,
but
actually...
It's not just a pass.
It's like celebrate.
It's celebrate.
Yeah. It's like you broke barriers by doing this.
And that's, to say it's a problem is an understatement, because it has affected so many different shows, and the fact that like people still think like the Tom Hanks, Forrest Gump, like he is a simpleton, and I even think about that one being undiagnosed the entire time, and also that film's troubling relationship with AIDS and with the Black Panthers and all those sort of like I would call misdiagnosis of an issue.
Just little.
It's a problem.
Forrest Gump does a great job of just taking so many big issues and just being like, oh,
It's like, that's a thing that happened.
that's the thing, and Forrest Gump was there.
Yeah, before I saw it.
Forrest saw it, got shot in the butt.
Vietnam? Are you kidding me?
And then you have things like, you have Brad Pitt, 12 Monkeys.
Yeah.
You have, what's his name in I Am Sam?
Oh, Sean Penn.
Sean Penn.
Sam I Am.
Eggs and ham. Eggs and ham. And then you have Leonardo DiCaprio.
We are obviously speaking more on the portrayal of people on the spectrum of autism. And something that I just realized right now is that like, it only seems disrespectful unless it's Asperger's. That's the only, what are these considered? Conditions?
Yeah.
That's the only condition on the spectrum that I feel is represented accurately and like respectfully. Yeah. And I believe that's because it's the one condition on the spectrum that's considered like the smart, like most functioning.
Yeah, we
Even
accept that one as like, oh, if you have Asperger's, you're just socially inept, but you are smart and valuable.
Right. And I think that's actually you even hitting on something that's like a fetishization of Asperger's in a weird way.
Because it's like
amongst,
because we have to have one. We have to have that one.
For lack of a better word, it's like the best.
Right, which is
condition on the spectrum.
Such a dangerous connotation.
Because like I'm thinking of like What's Eating Gilbert Grape compared to like Atypical.
Oh God, yeah.
Atypical is a really good show. They do a great job of representing Asperger's, and yeah, it's like really good.
Yeah.
What's Eating Gilbert Grape is the most disrespectful, over the top, like, why did this need to be done? portrayal, and it's only like that when it's the severe autism that's being portrayed, because they just let their minds wander with how these people behave.
Right.
Or they take the big thing that they see and they're like, this is who that person is. And so like they clearly built that character based around one trope of autism that they've witnessed, and they blew it out of the water. And it's so bad because that movie was so big and probably was the only representation of autism that so many people saw and then believed because of its artistic representation. So then they go around the rest of their lives thinking, oh man, everyone who acts like that, or I see act like that, they're that special in that movie. When it's like, it's not true. Like if you watch any or listen to any studies or watch any documentaries on real autistic people, it's like living with a normal person, except they have autism, and it's like it may be part of who they are, but it's like they don't go around acting like stupid.
That's what I was.
And like there are very, very serious cases where it's kind of like my mom has told me from experience that there are people who are incapable of doing things, obviously on their own, in really serious cases, but like it was still just a complete misrepresentation.
Definitely.
I mean, it's not even. It's not so much that it's a misrepresentation, that it is like a misplaced representation.
Yeah.
Because it's like, why Leonardo DiCaprio? And that's a discussion that we've had multiple times, is that if Hollywood felt the need to get these stories out there and help people understand like the struggle of people with severe autism and things along those lines, why not use someone who actually but
lives with it.
lives with
experiences
autism.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
Why not get that actual perspective in there?
Rather than like, I'm thinking about the whole like the method acting thing where it's like, oh, they went and spent 6 months in an autism facility.
And it's just like you said, with that being like the last form of blackface, it absolutely is, because blackface happened, and then there was the push to get black voices in the media and portraying themselves, instead of there was brown face, and now Native Americans portray themselves in films.
Right.
You know, like that would not be accepted. You can't put on brown face and be someone from Mexico. Like none of those things are accepted.
You can't get away with that anymore. Yeah.
However, you can still be a completely normally functioning human being and portray someone with autism in a film.
And then also in the ways in which, because it's no better. Like that's the thing. Like I'm even thinking about like the mannerisms of black and brown face and how offensive those were. Because black and brown face is one thing, but it really usually was the mannerisms and the things they were doing that were so fucked up.
It's the like application of that, whatever your face is, you apply that to the whole personality. That becomes the personality. It's no longer a human being. It's this shrouding a human being.
And in that way, I'm even thinking about Gilbert Grape is almost like this like kind of misery porn of like showing you like, it's like, oh man, like look at like you're saying with that shroud, like look at how miserable that shroud is.
Right.
You know, like there's the happiness in Gilbert Grape is only to get you to those crucial moments of sadness when you're worried about Arnie and when you're scared for him and he's out of control, like, which is super exploitative of the subject and the viewer.
Being like these simple random moments, and they always come in with the light music, and it's always just like, it's like, oh, they stopped on the side of the road and Arnie basically wasn't doing anything to disrupt anybody's lives, and that's the happy moment.
Or he saw something that's beautiful that no one else knows.
something like that, right? And then they're like, these simple moments are what they live to enjoy, which is like, what are you saying? Like,
that they have no like depth beyond the simple moments.
Exactly.
It's like, that's not true for anyone. You can't generalize and make that type of statement, and that's exactly what they do when they portray these people. And
Definitely.
I don't understand how that's still a thing.
Still things. So on a positive though, Shia LaBeouf and God, I wish I could remember the actor's name. Peanut Butter Falcon last year. That wasn't much better. Definitely not my favorite film by any means. I had problems with that film outside, but as far as its portrayal and representation went, it was amazing. It felt like one of the first times I had really been allowed into this man's world, and like I was lost in it, and I was like, I felt his logic, and like his logic was dictating the universe. You know, it wasn't like the Hollywood logic like applied to that universe. And that was really cool. I mean, now, come on, guys, give Dakota Johnson something to work with. That's all I'm asking here. Like, Dakota Johnson deserves better. Because, like, we saw Suspiria. Everyone saw Suspiria. She turns up in that movie. Like, her dance scenes in Suspiria are freaking insane.
Did everyone see Suspiria?
Not everyone saw Suspiria.
Check out Suspiria.
Check out Suspiria.
On Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime, right?
Video,
Yeah. Prime, Big Daddy Jeff.
Give him a couple dollars.
Give him a couple dollars.
Okay.
It's not
Only
gonna
exception
go
to these problems is Tropic Thunder, obviously. Hands down.
Well, and okay, but Tropic Thunder is an interesting film because it so smartly, it so intelligently satirizes those subjects.
Because
wow, people almost because it came out in 2008, people like didn't read it as that to a certain extent, which I think is.
I love that you said there's bad satire because I was just about to say they satirized it in a way that Howard Stern thought he was in that video that's like causing him all the controversy now, or I don't know if it still is. Or
it still is.
Okay,
yeah.
But that video that's causing him all that controversy, he thought he was doing what they did in Tropic Thunder pretty much. And that's why I feel like Tropic Thunder was accepted without even like, I mean, it had some controversy with Robert Downey Jr. being in blackface, but like there was not that much controversy behind that movie for when it came out. Like that,
because they were saying directly, this is what happened. This is what people are doing.
Right.
This is how things are happening right now in Hollywood. And they made so many direct references to, like you said, blowing up 18 fucking acres of land just for a shot
just
that
for
they biffed
now,
and didn't even like
which is
big things that are like and it's just like obviously it's a
that we were like, hey, Vietnam, we're done here. Then Francis Ford Coppola comes back 7 years later with a bunch of napalm. Is like, I'm making a movie, guys.
He said, you're lucky it's not a war.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to film it.
but like to the point of bad satire, and this PC culture is like, there used to be just a lot of bad satire that wasn't even like, it wasn't funny because it was literally, they're like, oh, it's satire. It's like, no, you're just making racist or sexist jokes and then hiding behind the word satire. Yeah, and it's like, you're not making a statement or at all. You're not making fun of the people who are racist or sexist or anything like that. You're just doing it because you want to do it. And I think that people, because there's sort of a push now for people to be more PC, and as much as I'm not for the PC culture or movement, like I've found myself obviously correcting myself in a certain way, and I'm not sure if that's just maturity.
That's just empathy. That's maturity. Yeah, that's you getting older.
But yeah, I mean, there's a push to censor more. Like your comedy now has to be kind of some comedians feel like they have to censor their comedy now, but I mean that's probably if you have to think about your comedy and whether or not it's because like you have people like Tom Segura. Right, whose comedy is unapologetic and not necessarily PC at all, but it's still understandable and it's still accepted. Like that's good comedy. Like,
it also doesn't come from a bad place.
Exactly.
Like, that's that thing too. Yeah. Like never once in my life have I ever thought like, oh, Tom wants to hurt Cajuns. You know, like he's making jokes and all. Like if anything, I worry more for Christina and his children because he's such a fucking psychopath. And on that note, we will be right back.
And we are back, everybody.
Oh.
Yeah, so I wanted to like get at what you were saying about like the comedians and the PC culture and stuff like that. I don't know if it's necessarily that like if you have to take a step back and look at your comedy, then you're probably doing something wrong, because like even Tom Segura, like you mentioned, had to take a step back and look at his comedy because he damn near got canceled for the joke that he made about like certain forms of mental illness being really funny. He damn near got canceled for that, had to take a step back and think like, damn, am I really fucking up? But then realize, no, people are just being soft. So it's like, you will still have those feelings even if you are doing it for the right reasons and not a total piece of shit. But, and then what you were saying about like not being with the PC culture, you already know I'm not with that. And then what you said about empathy made me think that instead of like the movement being for more political correctness, it just needs to be for more empathy.
Yeah.
That's what the movement should be. Not to just correct yourself for the sake of correcting yourself, because that does nothing at all. That's the same thing as like
falsely supporting a movement.
That's the same thing as like ending slavery and then having Jim Crow laws. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's correcting things because people told you to correct it, not because you feel like it needs to be corrected. Because if they felt like it needed to be corrected, black kids would have went to school with white kids from jump. But they were still not fucking with it. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So like in this case, it's that people are correcting themselves. I mean, some people are definitely in it.
Right.
But for the most part, people that aren't in it are still having to correct themselves, and they're not learning from that correcting. They're doing it like for face value.
Definitely. It's like, yeah, to save face, instead of like having the perspective of that empathy.
Right.
Because like, I mean, and that's like, hopefully what this like whole movement right now is pushing towards, and even like, I hate to bring this up, but The Last of Us Part 2, like I think people misinterpreting that game is because they don't understand that game is about perspective. That game is to put you in different perspectives so that you can empathize with everyone in the story. And like, I think, hopefully the biggest lasting part of this movement that we're having right now, of like coronavirus, the effect of coronavirus on forcing us into our homes and forcing us to like kind of break off these like regular casual connections we usually have, is like, we long for that perspective now, hopefully. Like we have a craving, like a hunger for that perspective in a way we didn't. Because I feel like humans were getting so passive for so long with their empathy. You know, our empathy was something that was like, it came and went.
Yeah.
But it's something you have to work on. It's something you have to cultivate. It's not as easy as just being like, oh, I feel something for this person. No, it's like, I want to try to feel something for this person. And I want to like, that is really interesting. I wonder in comedy too.
I feel like now is an important time, a really important time for people to keep in mind that empathy is something they should have as a part of their arsenal of whatever they're thinking about. Like, they should have empathy at all times. And I think, especially right now, if you're gonna be using your empathy to help support, I'm really talking about the Black Lives Matter movement. If you're using your empathy to support this, if you're using your empathy to help LGBTQ, I think it's really important that you have empathy for individuals as well on an individual level, right? You can still hate cops, you can still hate the system if you want, but you still need to remember that you have empathy for individual people, the individual people who are being caused by harmed by the police system. You need to have empathy for the other side as well. And this is not coming across as like having empathy for the cops that shot anyone, because they're also people, but like they are also people, and they're still people that have gone through an entire life, and like I'm not saying they shouldn't be punished for what they're doing, and I'm not even talking about them at all really. I'm just saying keep in mind that empathy is something that you have and you use already, so don't like be selective about it.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
I like that. It's like do not get lost in your anger and lose sight of like empathy as the ultimate goal. Because like we were saying like before the break, anger can feel really good.
And empathy doesn't have to be forgiveness. Empathy doesn't have to mean you accept
empathy
what somebody does.
It does not mean forgiveness at all.
It doesn't. It just means understanding
even a little
where
bit.
or why maybe someone did something, and like still you can still feel very strongly about what should happen about it. Yeah. It by no means is an excusal of people's actions.
It's just the understanding that those actions were made by people.
Yeah.
Because
by
what you said
human
is,
beings.
yeah, people's actions, not that pig's actions, not that piece of shit's actions, regardless of the situation. You have to have empathy for that person as a person.
And like I think as a whole, and that applies to everyone. I mean, obviously, like if people just thought about empathy and like perspective, where people are coming from, like that single idea would help the system itself. It's just like that would work from both sides beneficially.
I like that. It reminds me of this Jean Renoir quote from Rules of the Game. It's like these characters, like this mad sex comedy from like the 30s, and they're all running around the house, like people are all fucking each other and having like hookups and stuff. And this exacerbated character lifts up his hair and goes, "Oh, the trouble with humanity is everyone has their reasons." And yeah, like that's. I mean, it really is. At the end of the day, is like once you access that empathy, then you're like, oh. Shit. You're like, I get this a little more than I did before, and now it makes it harder for me to have an issue with it. Or even not even have an issue with it, but like makes that issue more complicated that I have now. Makes it more, yeah. And also gives it more depth though. I think that's the thing too. Empathy gives everything more depth. But yeah, honestly on that note, yeah, we'll end on a very solemn, hopeful note. I like that a lot. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Like, subscribe, please send to your friends.
Please.
We appreciate your support. Any last plugs before we dip?
Plug for this week, just be more empathetic.
Check out fencing.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you next time.
Peace out.
Ducky joint.